Boker Tov. Today's daf is Daf Yomi Baba Basra Shilim for Achim Kol Beis Shalom Sun Batzar Shivya. The Mishnah said that you don't split up, whether it's fields or large rooms or whatever you're splitting up, houses, chaserot, unless there's enough for both. In other words, as we'll see, it's still got to be called a field. If you split it, if you split up the chutzner into two parts that are so small, they're not called the chutzner, then you can't. Then there's no rule that you can't force the other person to split it up. And the same thing, whether it's a field or whether it's a truckling, whether it's a room, whether it's any kind of it's a chicken coop, whatever it is, it's got to be enough for both. So let's say there's not. Ein bem k'dei l'zev Gemara at the top of the page. Ein bem k'dei l'zev ma'u. So what happens if there's not enough to split up and they're stuck with one another, right? We have a small area here, the small chutzner, a small room, a small chicken coop, a small whatever it was, a house, whatever you want, a palace, whatever it was. If it's not enough for both, what do you do? So Rav Yehuda says, "Is dina the good or good." We have a cloud, good or good. Good means you set a price, meaning buy me out, or good, or I'll buy you out. There's not enough here for both of us. There's not enough here. I don't want to share. When there's not enough room to split it up, not enough for both, so you have to share it, right? Guy doesn't want to share. Sharing is not good. So is there a din? Can I force you to say, listen, either buy me out, set a price, buy me out, or I'll buy you out? That's what Yehuda says. From Nachman says, no, less din to go to good. No, can't force him to buy. I don't want to buy you out, and I don't want you to buy me out. Let's share it. That's what Nachman says. Rav Yehuda says, no, there is a din of buy me out, or I'll buy you out. Only Rav Nachman, less din to go good. You say that there's no din if you can't force him to say either buy me out or I'll buy you out. What happens if a bechor pasha? The Gemara could have given an example with two brothers, regular brothers, sharing an inheritance, but it's a little more complicated with a bechor and a pasha, because a bechor pasha, bechor gets a double share, and the regular brother gets one share. So it seems like it's uneven. What are you going to do? The father didn't leave him a field; he left him over an evet knani, or ubehemet tmeya, or a non-kosher animal, which you just can't sell, split, and eat the food. Basically, all you could do with it is work with it. Same thing with an Evakanani. So what are they going to do? According to me, I say, well, there's not enough here for both of them. We can't split the animal down the middle or split the Evet down the middle. So Rav Yehuda says, you know what? Either buy my share out or I'll buy your share out. Come to an equitable agreement. Let's say, they fight about the price. They can set it up with a bezdin to decide what's an equitable price. Either set a price and buy me out or I'll buy you out. To make sense. But according to you, says you can't do that. What are you going to do? What are you going to do with something you can't split? And how are you going to work that? You can't cut the guy in two. Amalei, Shani Omer, I'll tell you very simple. Over the Zayomech, very good. The Bechor who gets a double share, and it's considered a double share now because we have a cloud that ain't a Bechor, no to Baroi Kabamuchsek. He doesn't get what's the future. He gets what's right now, here at extent at the time of death. Okay. So very, very good. We always say a Bechor gets, let's say, 2/3 and the Pasha gets 1/3. So very simple. The Bechor, he works for the Bechor, let's say Sunday and Monday, and Wednesday and Thursday, and Tuesday and Friday, he works for the Pasha. That's how it works out. You can't force me to buy out or buy you out. That's how Nachman will explain that case. According to Rav Yehuda, you could say, buy me out or I'll buy you out. Meisvei, another kasha. Famous case. A man is half an Evet Knani and half a free man. How does that work out? Because two people owned the slave together and one freed his share. So he's a Ben Chorin, half of him is Ben Chorin, and half of him is an Evet. Okay, so what does he do? He works for himself when he's a Ben Chorin, let's say alternate days. Sunday he works for himself, Monday he works for the master, right? And so on and so forth. You switch off every day. Okay, that's what Beis Hillel says. So you leave him the way it is. He's a half an Evet, half a Ben Chorin. You switch off days. Okay, you've repaired the problem with who is he working for, because he's half an Evet, half a free man. So he works for his master every other day. What is he supposed to do with his life? He can't get married. He can't get married to a shipra. Why? Because his half is a Ben Chor. He can't split up his half. Can't split up the person. Half of him is a Ben Chor. Not allowed to marry a shipra. But you're a Kaddish. Lisa Bas Chorin, he can't marry a regular Jewish girl either. Why? Because he's half an Evet Kanani. Evet Kanani is not allowed to marry a Jewish girl. Cannot marry an Evet Kanani. Yavatal, should he not marry at all? The world was created to be fruitful and multiply. Lo so, Hashem did not create the world for nothing, but l'shevas yitzar, he created to be inhabited. That's a mitzvah on everybody. And even though it's not a doraisa, that could even apply possibly to women, because we know the regular mitzvah pruvu doesn't apply to women, only applies to men. Hashem created an innate desire in women that they want to have children. So that's how men are able to have children with women, because even though the women don't have a mitzvah, men have a mitzvah, but there's an innate desire for the women to have children. In any case, there's some who say, "Lo sovro," Hashem says applies to everybody. But the point is, Beis Shammai had a good retort to Beis Hillel. How do you say he works one day for the master, one day for himself? That's fine. That's in terms of his work schedule. But in terms of his life, how is he supposed to get married? Ella. So the Ger says, Ella v'neitikad olam, for the betterment of society. Kofanis Rabba, we force his master, but Osa ben Char, we force his master, who owns half of him, to free his half as well. Because of Shalchatzi Damav. Now, who's going to pay for that? Free him of what? And it's buy him out. So what you do is you force the master to free him, and whatever his value is, his half, whatever that half is, the Eved will own him. The Eved, who's now a free man, will pay him. In other words, he gives him an IOU. I'll pay out my freedom. I'll pay you out over time, whatever, I'll pay him out. Beis Hillel then retracted, and they agreed with Beis Shammai. What Beis Shammai says is good. You force him to free him because he can't live that way. But what do you see? Says Rashi, right where the lines get wide. Time of the reason is because of Tikkun Olam. But if it wouldn't be for Piri Barivya, we wouldn't force him. Why don't you say good or good? Why don't you say there also, listen, buy me out or I'll buy you out? Why does he say over there? If you say that, you could always say buy me out or buy you out, or either you buy me out or I'll buy you out. Why don't you say the same thing over here? That is a question of buying out. The answer is shiny ocha, the all good ika, good leka. The Eved Kanani could say over here, I'll buy your share out, which is what he's doing effectively, right? That's what he does. He's freed, and in return, he pays his way out. He pays for his half. But a good leka, he can't say you buy me out. What do you mean you buy me out? Can the Eved turn to the master and say, you buy my other share? He's an Eved, half of him is a free man. A free Jewish person cannot be sold in perpetuity like an Eved Kanani. It can only be sold for 6 years, etc., right? Depending on the circumstances, right? Either he's sold by the court if he can't pay his chov, or he's sold out of poverty. He can sell himself, but only for 6 years. He can't sell himself for more. Can't knock like Eved Kanani. So therefore, there's no saying, he could say, I could buy, good or good means either you buy me out or I'll buy you out, right? You have to accept one or the other. Take your choice, good or good. Over here, he could only say, I'll buy you out. I'll buy my share out. You own half of me, right? I'll buy you out. But he can't say you buy me out, meaning you buy my free half and become a slave. In other words, you can't buy me. You can't sell your person. A Jewish person cannot sell himself to somebody else in perpetuity. So therefore, this is not a case of good or good. The question was, why don't we say, according to the Chorah, it's a proof to Rav Yehuda, it's a proof against Rav Yehuda, rather, because Rav Yehuda says it didn't go all good. Why don't you say good or good here? Here you only say, yeah, he has to force him out because of pru or vu. We do force him. We do force the master to free him. In other words, the Eved buys his way out, right? Buys his way out. Effectively, good. I'll buy my way out. That's what he does. But you don't say good. You know why? You don't say good. You don't say you buy me out because he can't buy him out. So therefore, it's not a case. Pardon?
The free half become an Eved.
Yeah, but it's not the same. No, that's not the same because half of him is an Eved Kanani. In other words, he's still a Jewish person.
Yeah, but if he's an Eved Ivri, he gives him a period of corrective because his master could give him
yeah.
Solve the problem too.
Yeah, but that could also only be, I forget if the rules are, I think that's only if he's sold by the Bezdin because of not out of free will, that he gets a ship on. No. As you can't afford. That's only when he sells them because he stole and he can't repay and all that. I think it only works out. I forget if that's the way it works, but I think that's how it is. In any case, he can't say buy me. In other words, it still wouldn't be the same because it still wouldn't be the same. He's still, half of him would be an Eved Kanani and half of him would be an Eved Ivri, right? So it's still
he's in this crazy
crazy situation, right. But he can't say it's not right, but it's not exactly like either you buy me or I'll buy you out because you buy me out wouldn't be the same. He wouldn't be the same thing. He wouldn't become the same person. He wouldn't be a full Evet Kanani. He wouldn't be if he buys himself out, then he's a full Jewish person. If the master would buy him out, he still wouldn't be an Evet Kanani.
Well, he's in that situation.
Rashi says she'ein Evet ivri nimka el l'sheish, so he still wouldn't be the same thing. A Jewish person can't be sold. In other words, you can't sell a Jewish person. He said you can't use it. He's sold really just as a work. It's a work contract for 6 years, but he's not really sold. So he can't really say therefore there's no good. Tashma, another proof. Two brothers, one is rich and one is poor. One is poor, one's rich. And a father left him over a large facility. It's a bathhouse, a base abad, or a oil press, right? An oil press. This like a large facility, and the poor person, right, really doesn't have people to run these kind of things. So if it's made for renting out, like going to rent it out, fine. Then it's very good. They split it. Let's say two regular brothers, Reuben and Shimon. Neither one is a bechor, let's say. Okay, and they split it. Okay, very good. The father left them over a running business, and they rent it out. They rent out the base abad or the merchatz. They split it. Let's say they're not renting it out. It's made for personal use. So the rich person can make use of these things. He's got a lot of slaves, and he can run the base of merchatz, or he can run the base abad. So the rich person could say to the poor person, okay, take your slaves, and use the bathhouse, use it in good. The poor person, of course, doesn't have any slaves. Who's going to warm up the water? Who's going to run the whole facility? Who's going to manage the property? So he can say, get your olives, and run them through the olive press. He doesn't have any olives. In other words, the rich person is like effectively making fun of the poor person. Go ahead and use it. I'll use it this week. You use it next week. The poor person can't use it, right? So therefore, what do you say? Why don't you say that the poor person could say, no, we buy me out, or you say that's if it's not made to rent out, then the poor person has no recourse. He can't say buy me out or you buy me out. If you hold good or good, then you could either say buy me out or buy you out. Why doesn't he have a recourse here? So therefore, it's a proof against Rabbi Yehuda that you don't say good or good. Doesn't more no hasamnami good iko or good leka. There he could say the poor person could say buy me out, buy my share out, but he can't say I'll buy you out because he has no money. He's poor. So therefore, it's also not a case of good or good. Good or good means where they both have the means, and he could say, listen, either you buy me out or I'll buy you out. Like in a case of a chutzner, as we said before, a chutzner where a chutzner, let's say, has only 7 square amos, not 8. We said if the chutzner has 8 square amos besides the area outside the door, right? So each get 4, that's fine. Let's say there's only 6 or 7 square amos. So what do you do there? So contributor could say, listen, not enough room for both of us. I don't want to share it with you. There's not enough room here to split it that we should each have a full 4 amos. So either buy me out or I'll buy you out. Rav Yehuda says you could do that. Rav Nachman says you can. Are these other proofs against one way or the other? No, because those cases aren't cases of good or good. In one case, we saw that the slave could say, "I'll buy myself out," but he can't say, "You buy me out," right? Because the owner cannot buy the slave, cannot buy the free half and turn him into a Evet Kanani. And in this case, again, with the poor person, the poor brother and the rich brother sharing a large facility, he could say, buy me out, but he can't say, I'll buy you out. Tashma, another proof. If they want to, yeah. If they yeah, he could.
The other brother, the rich brother, would be just.
That's correct.
With the partner.
He could. He could. If he could find such a partner, fine. The question is, can he force him to say, you buy me out? In other words, let's say if he finds a third party, wants to sell a share, sure, why not? There's no rule against that. But the question is, let's say he doesn't have a third party, just listen, I don't have any money, I have nobody to buy me. I'm forcing you to buy me out. I can't use the facility, I have no people to run it. Buy me out. Can you do that or not? No, because he can't. If you could say, buy me out or I'll buy you out. But here he can't say, I'll buy you out, and therefore he's stuck.
The partner has the right of first refusal.
Presumably, right, if he wants to buy him out, correct, yeah. Tashma, another case. Zakla, here's the general. We talked about when there's not enough there's a question whether it's splitting something up. If they split it up and it would still be called what it was originally called. There was a big field here. If we split it up and we still each wind up with a field, or we split up the chutzner and we each wind up with a chutzner, or we split up a large building and we each wind up with what's called a building, but if not, if not, make up the difference in money. Make up the difference in money. If there's not enough to split up, so pay him out. That's what good or good. Either pay, if there's not enough to split, so work it out with money, meaning buy me out or I'll buy you out. So here's a proof to Rabbi Yehuda. So against Rav Nachman says, Gemara, you're right. That's a proof like Rabbi Yehuda, but tonight it's machlokes tanam. The Tanya, we're going to try to prove that it's machlokes tanam. Let's say the Tanya Tula Tashir. Let's say there's a chutzner that only has 7 amas square to split up. They don't have 4 for each. So he says, I'll tell you what. So, but the one guy says, let's say Reuven says to Shimon, not brothers, they're just splitting up a chutzner, let's say, or it could be brothers splitting up or whatever. But the point is that there's 2 people over here who own this together, and there's not enough to split up. But one guy says, one guy is so disgusted from sharing with the other guy, he says, well, I'll tell you what, you take 4 amas. You can get your share. You get a share. You go on a chutzner, fine. You take a share. I'll take less. Right? I'm willing. 7 isn't enough to split 4 and 4. Okay, you take your 4 and I'll take less. I don't want to be with you. I'm willing to share something, take something which is so small that it's not even a chutzner, not even a field, not even a tracklin, whatever. He's entitled to do that. He's willing to do that. Fine. Shmuel says, "Ain't Shomlo." You don't listen to him. Now, what's the case? It's like the way we learn. My time of Shmuel. Why does Shmuel say you can't do that? If a guy is willing to accept less, why not? Why can't he do that? Right? What's the problem? Right? He's willing. This guy says, I'll take 2 or 3, you take your 4. What's the problem? Elav must be something missing over here. This is what he means to say. Tulat Shiur, you take your Shiur, you take your 4. Bani Pachos, Shomelo. I agree to that, says the Tanakama, right? But good or good, Nami Shomelo. Or he could say, you buy me out, or I'll buy you out. Because there must be something additional over here. Because it doesn't make sense to say that the Tanakama says, I'll take less. Shmuel says, no. But the other party doesn't have to agree to that. Ein Shom doesn't have to agree to it, even though he's getting his full 4. He says, I don't want to agree to it. Now, why not? Why should that be? It must be that there's more to it. It must be where when Reuben says to Shimon, you take your 4 and I'll take less, you listen to him. Or good oganami shomalo, when he says, buy me out or I'll buy you out. Shmuel says, no, you don't listen to him. Why? Because he doesn't hold of good or good. You can't force me out. You can't force me out because it can't be that Shmuel says if the other guy's will, if the first guy's willing to say, I'll take less, why not? It must be that Shmuel says, ain't Shomelo, it's because he doesn't hold of good or good. You can't say, buy me out or I'll buy you out. I don't agree to that. I don't want to buy you out. I don't want you to buy me out. You can't force me. So the char tzemach lokus tanam. That's the answer. Rav Yehuda goes like the one that says good or good there is. Rav Nachman says no. You don't say good or good. It says more low. That's not the case at all. It's really there's no good or good over here. It's very simple. Reuben said to Shimon, "You take your 4. You get your 4. I'll take less. I'm willing to do that." But Uda comment my time Shimon. Why does Shimon say ain't Shimon the Amalei? Because the second guy Shimon can tell him, "Ibadami Leslie dummy. If you want to pay me off with money, or you want me to pay for the extra that I'm getting, I don't have any money. Leslie Damalimach, right? Even matana, the gersa is, right? The even matana, and if you want to give me as a gift, you want me to take more? Lo nechal, I don't want to take a gift. We each own this 7 square amma chutzner together. You say you can't force me to split it because there's not 8 here, right? So you say I'll take that you're willing to give me 4 and you'll take 3. Well, then you're giving me a gift. I don't accept gifts. I don't want to accept a gift. Or you want me to pay for the extra that I'm getting, right? I'm getting an extra amount. I don't have any money for that. That's different. This is not a case of good or good. It's not a case of good or good, buy me out. This is the circumstance. He didn't say buy me out or I'll buy you out. He said, listen, there's only 7. You take 4, I'll take 3. Tanakama says nothing wrong with that. Shmuel says, no, I don't want to take 4. I don't want to pay for it, and I want to get accepted as a gift. So this is not a case of good or good. I'm only about Rav Yosef. How do Rav Yehuda? This is what Rav Yehuda said. Again, Rav Yehuda, this is an Amor. Rav Yehuda said that get good or good, that there is a din of good or good, that when there's not enough to split, in any case, a chutzner, a field, whatever, the one can say to the other, buy me out or I'll buy you out. Really, his halacha is based on Shmuel, his Rebbe. Other Rav Yosef is ruled the Shmuel. That's none. The Choritz is based on what Shmuel said. Why? The time we learned in a Mishnah. This is the same Mishnah that we're dealing with. Kisvei Kodesh, when it comes to splitting up, it said, Kisvei Kodesh, if you have a scroll, a holy scroll, you can't force them to split it up. Not only that, now you can't force them, you're not allowed to split it up. The Kisvei Kodesh, right, he says what? Even though they both want to split it, lo yachloku. Why? Because it's a bizoyam to bring a scroll to the Bezdin and to fight over it and split it up. Right, right on Torah, b'krachechad and b'im krachechad. Right, I'm sorry. It's a bezayin. The bezayin is not cutting it into two. The bezayin is fighting over it and splitting it up in Bezdin. Shmuel says, right. In other words, if you have a big scroll that's got, you got Torah and Nevi'im in one scroll, and they're fighting over it to split it up. So Mishnah says, even though they want to split it up, they both agree you don't do that. It's a bezayin. That's only if it's in one scroll. You don't do it because of the bezayin of Hegesh, where they agree to do it. Mishnah says, even though they both want to split it, they agree. You'll take one, I'll take the other. You don't do it because it's a bezayin. Shmuel says that's only if it's in one scroll. Let's say it's in two scrolls. You have a Torah and I have Nevi'im. Cholkan, you split it. Now wait a minute. When you're splitting up, I'm taking the Torah, you're taking the Nevi'im. What's worth more? Presumably, one's worth more. One's bigger, or the Torah is worth more, or there's more parchment over here. They're not worth exactly the same. So he said, but shnei krichos, you do split it. If you don't know the synagogue, why talk about one krachechad? Even if it's in two, how do you split it? You have to make up the difference. They can't both be worth the same amount of money. Right? So how does that work out? He says, Shmuel says, if it's in two separate scrolls, then you do split it because it's not a bezoyan. You take one, I take the other, but they're not worth the same. Obviously, one is either bigger, maybe Nevi'im is worth more, or the Torah is worth more, but they're not worth exactly the same. How does that work out? It must be that you hold good or go. Either you buy my share. The difference is either you buy me out if mine is worth, if yours is, if the share that I'm getting is less than yours, so you pay for the difference, or I'll pay the difference. If you don't hold up good, why talk about nami? Even if it's two krachim, if you don't hold up good, how do they split it? It's talking of Salman, or Salman saying that's it because they both agree. If they both agree, there's no issues, right? But what are we talking about? The whole issue is if you're talking about a chutzner or a gan or a gina or a field or whatever you're talking about, a building, talk about where there's not enough to split up, so one can't force the other to do it. If they both agree, why not? If they both agree, there's nothing to talk about. Here also speaking where they both agree, because he's going with Shem Rutzen. What did the Mishnah? The Mishnah said, if it's Kisvei Kodesh, even though they both want to do it, you don't do it because it's one scroll, it's a bizoyon. But if it's two scrolls and they both agree, they come to an agreement, there's no problem. It's not a case of good or ugly, they both agree. Amar Meimer says, is the din of God. We hold like Rabbi Yehuda and Amar Aleph that there is a din of good or ugly. When there's not enough to split something, and one party says to the other, buy me out or I'll buy you out. Right? If he doesn't say that, fine. If they both agree to share it, fine. Let them go on forever. Let them be partners. But if one says, buy me out or buy you out, he can force him. What about Rav Nachman? Rav Nachman is a great rabbi. He was a posik, and he said there is no such thing. I didn't hear what he said. You have that all. I didn't hear what he said. He didn't want to say I don't like what he said. He just said I don't. He means to say I don't hold of him. This is what you don't really hold of him. You don't hold of what Rav Nachman said. That what? That you don't force somebody to say buy me out. That a person cannot force somebody else to be in a situation of buy me out or I'll buy you out. Listen to this case. Rabbi Barchina, two brothers, Rabbi Barchina, these two brothers, the father left them over two maidservants. One knew how to bake and cook. One knew how to sew. She knew how to spin and how to weave, etc. Right? That's what she knew. But also came to Rava, so they came before Rava. How are we going to split this? Less din to go. There's no din of gid or agad over here, right? So what do you see? You can't force one to buy the other one out, and that's what Rava Paskin, that there's no din of gogod. You can't force them that way. They're stuck that way. So you see that we don't hold of good or good. That's not a case of splitting. They each needed both of them, right? Good or good means, listen, I don't want to split this. I don't want to split with you. Buy me out. right? There's not enough to split here. Buy me out, or I'll buy you out. We're not sharing over here. In this case, though, they both needed both of them. In other words, they weren't in a situation where one where he says, I'll take both, or I'll buy you out, or you buy me out. They both needed both of them, right? So therefore, they both needed both of them. Says Rashi, right? Rashi says, right? Where's the Rashi here? Yeah, Rashi above. Rashi above. B'shem Rosen, less than the gargle, the kofa less is the may oats and biafa below them korchalko. In other words, you can't force it to say, listen, I need the cook more than I need the seamstress, right? So that's worth more. So pay me the difference. Slav guru agaru ilo omele o kachshteim o akachshteim chalachas ein bakdei lechem. In other words, each one of them, they each need both of these. It's not like it's not like, okay, I'll take this one, you take that one, we'll pay the difference. They both needed both of them. Therefore, there's no dinner to go to August because they both want it. Can't say, listen, I'll pay the difference between them. It wasn't like one said, okay, I'll take the let's say the cook is worth more and the seamstress is worth less. So if I take that, I'll pay you the difference. That's not a case. They both need both of them. So it's not a case of go to August. So they either have to share or come to an agreement. But he can't force them to say, I'll buy you out or you buy me out, because it wasn't like that. They each needed they each needed both of them. That's not good August. That's listen, you take one, I'll take the other. That's not good August. Good means I buy you out or you buy me out in its entirety. I have a kisvei kodesh. That's Gemara. But kisvei kodesh Dapim boilu. What about kisvei kodesh that they both need over there? Where don't you force them to split if it's one cross beak, if it's one scroll, because it's a bazillion for the scroll? There you say you do split. Now, when it comes to Sifrei Torah and Nevi'im, presumably they both need a Torah, they both need a Nevi'im. So there they both need it, and yet you say over there that Shmuel says you do split. It's Patag Rav Salman b'shneim ratzu is the gears b'shneim rotzim. We already explained above. Rav Salman said that's where they both agreed. In other words, if you have two scrolls, one is a Chumash, one is a Torah, one is a Nevi'im, and one says, I want to split them, right? There you can't force him to do it because he's not saying you buy me out or I'll buy you out. He's saying I'll take one, you take the other. That's not good or good. And why did Shmuel say you could split it? Because they both agreed. They both agreed. Listen, okay, I don't mind. You take the Chumash, I'll take this one. But in the case of the two brothers over there, it wasn't like one said, okay, I'll live with the cook and you live with the seamstress. Well, I have nobody to sew my clothes. You have nobody to cook for you. That doesn't work. They both needed both of them. They weren't, what good or good means, buy me out, you have my whole share, or I'll buy you out. Otherwise, it's not good or good. So these are in case of good or good. So we paskin there is good or good. And in the case where we say there is no good or good, it's because it's not good or good. Either, like you say, one can't buy the other one out, right? That's one thing that for one reason or another, you can't buy the slave that we had before, or the poor guy can't pay off the rich guy, or they don't want to split this thing because they both need both of them. Like in the case of the Chumash and the Navi, one's a Torah, one's the Navi, they really both need both. If they both agree, then you could do it, and you work out the difference because they both agreed. If they both agreed, then there's no issues over here. The whole issue, the whole discussion here is when they both don't agree, right? If there's enough to split both, then one can force the other to split. If there's not enough to split, one can force the other with good or other. Tarabana. Madbik on once we talk about Sifrei Torah, pardon. Yeah.
Say, Mark, since the Torah is worth more than the Nevi'im, the guy who's taking the Nevi'im and says you take the Torah, the guy with the Torah can say, I don't want the matana, the extra. It's a matana. It's the extra that he's getting, right, is a matana. It's a gift. The guy who's taking the Nevi'im is giving the guy who's taking the Torah, which is worth more. Right. So, why can't he say, I don't want to split it, I don't want your matana?
He could say that. He could say that, speaking about where they both wanted to do it. This is where they both agreed. There's no issue, right? No, the whole issue with the Sefer Torah is not the business issue. It's the bizayon. In other words, if it's in one scroll, it's a bizayon to bring to court and split it. If there's two separate scrolls and they both agree, so listen, we can't have agreement over here. You take the Chumash, I'll take the Navi. If there's a difference in price, we agreed or we don't agree. Whatever they agreed, they agreed. If they agree, it's okay.
Why isn't that like the 7 annals of ground? Right. I'll take 3, you take 4. I agree, but the guy says, no, I don't want to take 4, I don't want the matana that you give me the extra.
That's what Shimon Gamliel's opinion, and the Tanna Kamma says he could. So that's
the same thing here with the Sefer Torah.
over here the Sefer Torah for sure. If they don't want, if he doesn't agree, he doesn't have to split it at all. He doesn't have to split it at all. He can say, listen, I don't want your gift. I don't want to take it. It's speaking about where they both agree. If they both agree, there's no problem. That's me. The only issue with the Sefer Torah is not the agreement. The financial issue is what we're explaining. Because the issue is they both want one. But in this case, if they both agree to split it, then it's okay. But if they don't both agree, then one can't force the other to split it because he could say, listen, I don't want your gift, and I don't want to pay, and etc. It's not a case of it, they both need both of them. That's the point. They both need both of them. So it's not good or ugly means I'll take both or I'll buy you out. Now, in the case of if let's say they had would you say good or ugly if he says I'll buy both, I want both of them, but I'll buy the chumash and I'll buy your share out. But they both need both, so it's not like they. In the case of a chutzner, you could say, listen, I'll buy you out, you buy me. I'll go get another chutzner. I'll go get something else. With the Sefer Torah, presumably they both need them, just like the case of the two maidservants. They both need both of them. It's not a solution to say, I'll buy you out. I need them. Yeah, buy you out doesn't help me.
And if they didn't both need them,
then they could. Then they could do it. Right. Are you allowed to attach Torah and Nevi'im all together? Now we know today, what do we have? We have a Torah by itself, and you usually don't find Ksubim by itself. You find individual scrolls of each book of Navi. So, but the Tanna Kamma says if you want, you could attach the Torah and Nevi'im and Ksubim all in one. You can't do that. Yeah, Torah is by itself, Nevi'im by himself, and Ksubim by itself. No, each sefer. We'll see. There's 8 Sifrei Nevi'im. What do we have? You have Yeshua, Shoftim, Shmuel, Malachim, and then Yeshai, Yirmiyahu, Yecheskel, and then Trei Asers, total of 8. So he says each one by itself. You don't even mix the Nevi'im together. You had a story with Bitzim, son, a famous rich guy. Shayilo Shmona Nevi'im. He had the 8 Nevi'im with Welcome Hechad up here, Rav Elazar ben Azariah. So with the agreement of Rav Elazar ben Azariah, he had 8 together, all Nevi'im together. That would be like Rav Yehuda's opinion, right? That's what Rav Yehuda said. Rav Yehuda based his opinion on Rav Elazar ben Azariah, who then made his own, had this with Rav Elazar ben Azariah's agreement. The Chacham Omer the Girsab, no, you got the story wrong. They were all individual ones. The Chacham say you're not even allowed to put Yeshua, Shoftim all together, each one by itself. Says no, they were by itself. There was a machlokas. What was the Maisa? Amar Rabbi said Maisa b'iluk f'nei. There was a story they brought in front of us. They told them they're all attached together. And we agreed that too. So Rebbe's going like the Tanna Kamma, right? Tanna Kamma's like Rebbe, they put it all together. So we have three different opinions. Can you put them all together? Can you put Torah by itself? Torah must be by itself, and by itself, or does each book of the Nevi'im also has to be separate by itself? Some of the Ksubim also, right? When Torah Nevi'im Ksubim, when you're in each of the 5 books of the Chumash, between each one, you leave 4 lines, 4-line separation. When you write, if you put 8 Nevi'im all together, or the Ksubim, you between each Navi you have 4 lines. But when you have the Navi of the Shnei Masar, which are really like 12 individual books, Gimel Shitin, 3 lines between each one. But if you finish at the end of a urea, of a column, you could start the next one without the 3 lines or the 4 lines, because that's the separation right there. And we'll see also it makes a difference if you cut them up eventually. If you want to join all 3 and attach them all together, all 3 some you could. And at the beginning, you put enough. In other words, as we'll see, when you put them all together, we're talking about where the whole thing was in one Eitz Chaim. In other words, it was on one stick. So you leave enough of empty scroll at the beginning to go around the stick, around the Eitz Chaim, so you leave enough for there. Uvasofo, but at the end, we're talking about at the end when you have Torah and Nevi'im together. There's only like the Sfardim, they have 1. No, the Sfardim also have 2. It's just that they have it in a book, right? They also have 2 Eitz Chaim. The Sfardim Torah also has 2, right? Okay, but here he's talking about where it's all in one. So it's all in one on one scroll, so to speak. One scroll, but it's not, it's always one scroll, but it's on 1/8 time. So at the end, you have to leave enough parchment to go around the whole circumference of the Torah Ksuvim. There's no Eitz Chaim at the other end when you're talking in this case. It was so good they logo hekef around the whole thing. You understand? The Torah Ksuvim, if you put them all in one, you've got a pretty thick scroll here, right? It's all in one. So you have to have enough room at the end, empty room, to go around the whole thing. The same thing. If you finish at the end of a book, you could start the next book at the top. The im and if you want, you can cut them up. So the Gemara says, "My comment. What do you mean by that? What do you mean, my lemaimer? Everybody's moda that if you're by himself, it's okay. The whole machlokus is here is can you put all the books together, right? Can you put all the 24 books of the Sefer Kodesh together in one scroll, or do you have to have Chumash by itself, Torah by itself, and the by itself, Ksub by itself, or do you have to have each one? But everybody's moda, you could have each one by itself. So what does that mean? Here's the point. That if he means to say this is what we say, that if you finish at the end and you start at the top, right? You don't leave 4 lines there. Why? Because if you cut it up and you divide it up, which you're allowed to do, if you cut it up, you don't want to leave lines at the top. They'll look strange. Why didn't you start at the top? All the other columns start at the top and this one doesn't start at the top. Tosas asks over here, look at Tosas top, Tosas Rashba. What do you mean? So over here, if you have over here the Torah Ksuvim in one, and you put it all together, you wound it all around, and you say, well, if you finish one book at the end, you start there on the top, because if you come to cut it, right, it won't look funny. What do you mean? We said before, you can't cut it if it's one. If it's all in one, you're not allowed to cut it, right? If it's in 2, you could split it. That way, you could. They both agree, you could split it. But otherwise, you can't. Even if they both want to. How can you cut it over here? Like we said, like Rashi said before, it's only if one forces, if they want to split it and they come to court, how to do it, right? That you can't, even if they both want to do it. Why? Because it's a bizayon, he says, to come to court. It's a bizayon. So it's mashma that if they don't come to Bezdin, if they just agree on their own, they could split it, right? If they were forcing one to force the other to do it, you don't do it because it's a bizayon. Even if they would do it equitably, you understand? It's a bizayon for that reason. But if it's not a bizayon, you could split it. How could you say that that the first end you just have enough around the 8th time, and the second end goes away around? The beginning and the end is enough to wind around. We're assuming the same amount of winding around, whether around the 8th time or around the circumference of the whole thing. So if it's only enough to wind around the 8th time, so why does it say that we said at the end you have to leave enough room to go around the circumference of a whole thing together? And ikidei logo hekef, if it means that, so kasha amud, what's the first part? It's only around the 8th time. So because the lashon of kidei logo is mashma, it's the same amount. Of nachman, it's like no, let's start in no, there's different amounts. The first one is logo around the 8th time, and the second one is to wind around the whole circumference. Rav Ashi says no, kitanya b'sefer Torah. That's meaning about Sefer Torah, which is the way we do it on 2 8 times. That's what he means. All of this form are from beginning to the end, meaning on one scroll, on 1/8 time. So the Sefer Torah, the Sefer Torah is rolled in the middle, meaning it's on 2 8 times, and you roll it together. You make one column, so to speak, 1/8 time, and one together. That's how the Sofer from Yerushalayim used to write their Sefer Torah like we have, where it's in 2 scrolls, so to speak. It's on 2 8 times. It's one scroll, but it's on 2 8 times. That's what it means that we're talking about a Sefer Torah. Sefer Torah talk is not around the whole circumference. Sefer Torah is you only have enough at the beginning and the end to go around the 8th time. And we're talking about 1/8 time. We're not talking about the whole circumference. Over there, we're talking about we had all this one together. It was around the whole thing was around 1/8 time. All right, we'll pick it up from Shana Rabbana tomorrow. Have a good day.